Gen Z has a problem. Their album cycles are short, which means their careers could be shorter. Let's face it, we don't have a lot of Gen Z pop stars as it is. And now it feels like a lot of them are speed running to the end of their career because they don't believe in themselves like pop stars used to. They don't stick by their own eras if they start flopping at all. If they don't sell 1 million copies in the first week, it feels like they rush onto the next thing, they rush to put something else out, and they just don't believe in themselves. Now, the problem is that we used to live in a proper society that I think a lot of us wish we could go back to, where pop stars gave us an album every 2 years in an era that we really lived in, with a proper rollout, a cinematic arc, deep themes throughout, and world building. And whether that album was a success or a downright flop, they saw it through. They saw it until the end. They did the music videos, 4 or 5 of them. They did the live performances. They put out one single at a time, and they toured that ish and heard those songs over and over and over again, whether they liked it or not. Because pop stars back then knew that the commercial push was not just for the first week. It was a marathon. It was a long game that Gen Z just doesn't seem interested in playing. And you know what? Now it's not just Gen Z. Due to the state of media consumption, it seems like all generations of pop stars are just rushing to put out new music like there's no tomorrow. Let's look at a critical example. The year's 2013, when pop stars still existed. Lady Gaga just put out Art Pop, but it definitely didn't pop off like she wanted to the first week. The lead single didn't match Katy Perry's success. She was getting slated by critics, slated on the iTunes charts, on the Billboard charts, and even by her own label that was apparently mad at her that it didn't make enough money as compared to her previous 2 albums. Now, Gaga could have just folded in the towel. She was putting so much work and effort into world building that she could have easily relieved herself of all those duties if she thought it was just best for her to move on. But she decided to stick by it and really curate the art pop world. She toured that, and the Art Pop Ball was one of her most eccentric, most must-see tours of all time. Now, if she just decided to throw in the towel the first week, it wouldn't be revered as one of her best cult classic albums of all time. We'd be having a very different conversation if Gaga just gave up. Let me just clarify again, eras are meant to be lived in, and really an era. Now eras kind of feel like seasons or moments. Eras really isn't the word anymore. It's like a blip for one hectic release week and then it's on to the next. It's very disappointing. Every rollout, I'd say since 2021, is just so fast. It's like 2 months long. Singles are released 2 weeks apart, where the locals probably don't even know the first single was released before they move on. So they might even drop 2 singles at the same time. And then they decide to pick whichever one gets the most streams becomes the lead single. That is the fast foodification Gen Z is dealing with. And now if the album doesn't immediately make the top 10, have a trending audio on TikTok, they burn that shit. They say abort mission, hit the red button, and the label makes the artist get back in the studio, back to work, lock them in there, and don't let them out until they have something else to offer. They really waved the white flag too early. Let's look at some examples of this. I think Tate McRae, she's really, starting to emerge as a front runner of Gen Z pop, and I'm happy for her, as she should. She's incredible. But I think the biggest critique of Tate McRae is that she pushes product so fast. She does not let us live in her eras. The Think Later era of 2023, it performed well, but not good enough for them to not rush onto the next thing. Less than a year and a half later, she comes out with her album So Close to What, and people, honestly, they said that it sounds like the sounds of those 2 albums could merge together because there was no artistic growth. She barely even could come up with a different album cover. She changed the album cover of So Close to What because it looked too similar to the last one, because she was still the same girl from the last one. Even her last single she put out, Tit for Tat, why are we already dropping new singles when you're still promoting the last album? And she wrote her song Tit for Tat 2 weeks before it came out. What is the rush, Tate McRae? Slow down, have some time for your artistic growth, and I think that could really help push Tate McRae past what people think is a B+ pop star. We'll get into Sabrina as the ultimate example of why believing in yourself works in the long run, but let's look at some other Gen Z examples. So Benson Boone is another example of a label rushing an artist to push a product when they're not ready. Beautiful Things is still in the Billboard top 10. It's been in there for a year at this point. It's still doing its thing. And his label made him make another album, push 3 more singles to try to basically push himself out of the top 10. Why would they do that? Why would they not wait? His new album, he said he made it in just a few weeks with one other friend in the studio because he was rushed to do so. And he got so many embarrassing reviews because his label didn't let him grow, didn't let him have time to find his real sound. He had to rush Moonbeam Ice Cream or whatever the fuck that is. Ice Spice is another example of this. She is the queen of instant gratification. She blew up kind of overnight, but the second that hype kind of died down after 2023, she put out her album Y2K at the top of this year. Crickets, no noise. It got to number 18. And do you remember any music video from that? Do you remember any tour from that? Any real push behind her art? No, because she gave up on it after it debuted kind of poorly. And now she's already putting out new singles that will maybe or maybe not be a part of a new album depending on how they perform. Another example is Lola Young. Ever since Messy, cause I'm too messy and then I'm too fucking clean, took off on TikTok last year, her label has been really pushing her to put out one album each year since she's blown up. One in 2024, one in 2025. And it's led her to be passing out on stage. And she said her anxiety and depression is worse than ever. She feels overworked. People are comparing her to Amy Winehouse because she has the same manager. And now she's had to take a forced break from music because the demanding festival schedule and the demanding Spotify algorithm world that we live in has gotten the best of her. And it's not just the Gen Zers doing this. It's artists that we would consider millennial stars also hopping on the I'm not gonna believe in myself train and just push new product like there's no tomorrow. Lizzo, she put out these 2 really cute singles. It was clearly going to be the 2 lead singles from her new 3rd album that I'm pretty sure she completely scrapped because those 2 songs did really poorly on Spotify. They each only got like 10 million streams, which for Lizzo is drastically underperforming. She had to scrap that whole album. And then she comes out with a mixtape instead called My Face Hurts From Smiling. And it's not pop anymore. It's not sultry, it's rap. She's fully rapping because she had one trending audio on TikTok from a feature that she did that she saw this almost like this panic to strike when the iron's hot because nothing else is hot and I'm going to disappear if I don't rush to put out something else that people actually care about. That's the mind space that everyone is in. Miley Cyrus, her album Something Beautiful, after its pretty well promoted first week, I mean, she had a movie and multiple music videos and she was doing multiple events and performances. After it really didn't perform well, she said that she's, quote, on to the next thing. And she's like not promoting this album anymore. She's on to the next thing. She already has the next album prepared. What? This album just came out. Why are you rushing? There's Walk of Fame is a bop. Promote that. Put it out. Like build this world, do more. But they're not doing it. And it's so frustrating. These eras deserve their time to shine. Selena Gomez is another example of this. She was really teasing her bubblegum pop resurgence when she put out Single Soon, which I thought was a fun song, and Love On. They both admittedly didn't perform as well as a Selena Gomez track should. So she kind of did this weird thing, scrapped that whole era. This was like 2023, 2024. And she started posting on her Instagram story photos of her in photo shoots for songs like Good For You that are more R&B and sultry. And she was like, I get it, I know what you guys want now. And scrap the whole bubblegum pop era. I'm sure there was a lot more songs she could have used and put out, but she was like, no, this isn't doing good. And it just reeks of, I didn't really believe in it either. I'm just trying to have some chart success and please the masses. So then instead we get the Benny and Selena married couple album. We see an example of that with Justin Bieber. He jumped from swag 1 to swag 2. Is there swag 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? How many swags are there? Why are you putting albums out 2 months apart from each other, Justin? Let's let swag have its moment before swag 2 jacks its swag. I really want to look at Sabrina Carpenter now because I feel like she could be a solution in all of this. She is the crux of this whole argument. Sabrina is the example of what to do and what not to do. So Sabrina used to fall into this trap where it seems like her label was throwing so much spaghetti on the wall, not truly believing in or having any artistic vision for her, that they care enough to put their 10 toes down and scream to the public that this deserves to be seen. They made her put out 4 albums 4 years in a row. All of them really didn't perform well. That's why you don't know what they're called. But finally, from the year of 2019, she didn't put out any work because she put one out in 2016, 17, 18, 19. In 2019, she put her little foot down and she said, I'm taking a break to find my voice, find my sound, and I'll come back. And I know her label was probably very scared by that. The new people she was working with, very scared by that. But she said it's going to be worth it because this is how art is made. Art needs time to cook. So she put out Emails I Can't Send in 2022, and that is when her career truly started, truly blew up. She took her time to 2024 to make Short and Sweet, and the rest is her story. Is she falling back into that trap again? People criticized, why are you rushing the Short and Sweet era and dropping your new album, Man's Best Friend? Because Bedchem was still on the chart and you're snuffing your own success by stopping Bedchem in its tracks. Bedchem could have shot to the top 10. Juno deserved a music video. Bedchem deserved one. It seems like she could have had a long game era from like 2024 to 2026, but she stifled her own slay. So why are the album cycles so short? Artists are in a totally different media consumption landscape. They're no longer competing for a radio spot. They are competing for spots on playlists, algorithms on Spotify that change every day, not every week or month like they used to on the radio. That automatically makes people's shelf life shorter. So you can't really blame the artist in that sense. Maybe you can blame the listeners, us, or just the way technology is going. Because Spotify is a little shisty. Spotify monthly listeners really encourage people to routinely update their audiences. They want a frequent output of music rather than a big shocking return every 2 years. They really encourage frequent drops and consistent engagement. And Spotify and streams of Apple Music and all these streaming services don't pay as much as actual physical sales in iTunes or physical copies used to. So artists have to make more money. They have to put out music even faster. Also, all the tracks on an album these days get pushed simultaneously. Back in the day, one single was pushed at once on the radio to the general public, and then that one was getting bought up and ate on iTunes by itself, whereas other songs were like waiting in the wings. Now, the first day an album gets put out, every song could be in the top 50 of Spotify, and the world has already metabolized them super fast. So what are long-term negative byproducts of this new era of music and short album cycles that we're in? I think one is that we train artists to not focus on going out into the world, having life experiences, gathering content to write about, learning more about their craft, growing more as a human, and then returning with a big comeback, a new sound, a very meticulously curated aesthetic. I'm worried that Gen Z in 30 years will look back at them and we won't see people walking down the street in vintage t-shirts of Gen Z artists very much. We see people now walking down the street in Prince shirts, Michael Jackson, Madonna, Whitney, Mariah. They are immortal now because they took the time to make quality art back in the day that proved to be timeless. Now people make music for just the right now, and that's gonna have a really bad effect on Gen Z. But where does the solution lie? It lies in who I haven't brought up yet. Billie Eilish, Olivia Rodrigo, and Chappell Roan. So these 3 are really considered the icons of Gen Z. Sabrina as well, but we already spoke about her. Olivia, she lets her music broil. She lets her music be golden on the edges. She takes her time, and her impact is immeasurable. Billie Eilish, I think, is the queen of Gen Z, and she's never been known to rush out an album cycle, yet she's so young and she's put out so much great work. But still, she takes her time to do so, and her albums keep getting better and better, reviewed better critically. Her tours keep getting more successful. She's kind of already an icon. Like, we will see Billie Eilish shirts in 30 years, let's be honest. So I think the solution lies in them. They're doing it right. They're still keeping up with their audience by letting them in, touring, going to festivals. They understand the connection will always be there, and they're not worried or insecure about losing their spot. And they believe in themselves. They believe in their albums. Guts by Olivia, it was a huge album, but it definitely took some time for some of the singles and some of the album tracks to really sink in with the fan base. Look at Lacey, for example. Lacey took a long time to take off, and now it's one of her classics. So Chappell also said something really interesting. She wants to wait 5 years to put out her next album. Something that Adele normally does. Like, only Adele takes that long. But it'll be really interesting to see how that happens, because the rise and fall of the Midwest Princess was such a beautifully built world and well-crafted era that I don't doubt her that she wants to take the time to make something that quality again. But the landscape these days, I don't know if it will allow it. Will she return in 5 years with not much of her audience left because people put out 30 albums in the meantime? Or will she come back and be welcomed with warm arms because she actually took her time? I guess time will tell. So until the next time, what do you guys think about this? Do you think Gen Z stands a chance? And who's your favorite Gen Z pop star? Make sure to like and subscribe. The likes help so much. It really pushes the video. And most of you who watch my videos don't subscribe. So that simple, quick act of kindness can help me a lot. And bye.